She spent 6 months planning his wedding. Every flower, every table, every detail. He was the most powerful man in the room. She was just the woman who made the room work. That was all it was supposed to be. But something shifted in those planning sessions, the quiet kind that no one names out loud. And the woman he was going to marry noticed. She watched. She waited. And then, the night before the wedding, she acted. At the top of a marble staircase, in the dark. She pushed her. What she didn't know was that someone had seen every second of it. The next morning, the wedding was still on. The flowers were perfect. 200 guests were seated, and he was standing at the altar. The question is, what does a man like him do the moment he knows the truth? If you think you already know where this goes, you don't. Like this video. Because what happened inside that wedding? Not a single person in that room was ready for it. The flowers were perfect. That's the first thing anyone noticed walking into the grand salon of Chateau Mireille. 30,000 white ranunculus blooms in thick cascading columns. Crystal everywhere, catching the morning light and throwing it across 200 faces in their finest. The string quartet in the upper balcony playing something achingly slow, the air smelling of champagne and white tea, and the specific electricity of two very powerful families about to become one. Lee Seojin stood at the altar in a midnight black suit. He stood completely still, not from nerves. He hadn't been nervous once today. He'd been the opposite of nervous. Certain. The kind of certain that lives quietly in the chest and doesn't need to move. His second Min-jae stood 3 steps behind him. Min-jae had worked for this man for 8 years. He'd watched him in boardrooms, in back rooms, in rooms where the temperature dropped because someone had made a mistake. He'd never seen this particular expression before. He didn't have a name for it. He just knew. Whatever was about to happen was already decided. The doors opened. Choi Hae-sun appeared at the far end of the aisle. She was extraordinary. Nobody in that room would argue otherwise. The dress alone had taken 6 months to construct. She walked the way she always walked, like the destination was already hers and the walk was just the formality between her and it. 200 people rose. She reached the altar. She looked at him. He looked at her. And Lee Seo-jun said 4 words. I can't do this. Not loudly. He never needed volume for anything that mattered. The room stopped breathing. Here's what they didn't know. Here's what would have changed everything if they had. The woman who built that room, who chose those 30,000 flowers and arranged every crystal and positioned every chair, was not at this wedding. She was in a hospital bed 3 miles away. Fractured wrist, 2 cracked ribs, and the man at the altar knew exactly why. 6 months earlier, on an unremarkable Wednesday morning, Amara Osei walked into a preliminary consultation at Chateau Mireille with a leather portfolio and 4 years of reputation that had nothing to do with luck. She set the portfolio on the table and sat down. Lee Seo-jun walked in at precisely the scheduled time. Alone. Dark jacket. White shirt. No tie. He looked at the room the way she looked at rooms. Not casually, but the way you look at something when you're measuring it. He sat across from her. How many events of this scale have you managed? He said. No preamble. She liked that immediately. She didn't show it. 11 comparable in scope, she said. 3 were confidential. I can provide contact references for those principals if you need verification. Something moved in his face. Confidential. By client preference, not government, she said. Certain guests prefer their attendance undocumented. I've accommodated that. successfully. He studied her for a moment, not the polite way people study someone when they're managing an impression. The real way, the way you look at someone when you're actually trying to understand something. "What do you need to begin?" he said. "Honest answers," she said. "Not what you think I want to hear. What's actually true." A beat of silence, the kind that told her he was deciding whether she meant it. "All right," he said. He answered every question without performance. When he didn't know something, he said so plainly. When he had a preference, he stated it without apology. No wasted words, no management of how he appeared. 2 hours later, at the door, he paused. "You asked better questions than I expected," he said. "You answered them better than most people do," she said. He looked at her for 1 second longer than the handoff required. Then he left. She stood in that consultation room for a moment. Then she picked up her portfolio and went back to work. But something had shifted. Small. The way a compass needle moves before you can see the land. Here's what nobody outside those meetings understood. The planning sessions ran for 6 months. He came to more of them than clients at his level ever came to. Not intrusively. He asked precise questions and accepted her answers. He occasionally offered information that changed a decision in ways that always turned out to be right. He never wasted her time, but he also kept coming back. And here is what she noticed about him. What she didn't mean to notice. He listened the way people rarely listened. Not waiting for his turn to speak. Actually in it. Taking the structure beneath the words. The thinking underneath the structure. She had planned events for powerful people for 4 years. Most of them performed their attention at her. He gave her the actual thing. Somewhere in the 4th month, the meeting stopped being purely logistical. Not obviously, neither of them named it. But the agenda would end, and neither of them would end the conversation. He'd ask something that wasn't on the list. She'd answer honestly. He'd say something in return that surprised her. One evening, late, the salon lighting samples spread across the table between them. Half-empty coffee cups. The building quiet around them. He said, "You don't enjoy the events themselves." She looked up. "You're extraordinary at them," he said. "But you enjoy building them, not attending them." "Is that relevant to the brief?" she said. "No," he said. A pause. "You're right," she said. "What do you actually want to do?" he said. She could have deflected. She didn't. "Design spaces," she said. "Real architecture. I have the degree plans. This job is funding the last 14 months of a program I'm going to finish." He was quiet, looking at her in a specific way she'd been cataloging for months. Not the professional way. Something else. "Then this city's going to get a very good architect," he said. Simple, like a statement of fact. She held his gaze for 1 second. Then she went back to the lighting samples. But she felt it. The thing building between them in these rooms. The thing neither of them was going to name, because they were both too precise about what naming something meant. And because she knew something that sat in her chest like a closed door, he was engaged. It was in the original brief. She'd filed it where professionals file things that are not their business. But you can file something and still feel its weight. What she didn't know, what nobody had told her, was that he'd already decided to end it. Had been building toward it for weeks. Quietly. With the specific certainty of a man who doesn't move until he's sure. He'd been 3 weeks from saying it out loud. He never got there. Because Choi Hae-sun got there first. Hae-sun had known something was wrong for 2 months. Not because anyone told her. Nobody needed to. She'd spent 31 years reading rooms and the people, inside them, and the specific quality of her fiancé's attention, which she had always understood to be impressive, disciplined, and entirely controlled, had shifted somewhere in the 4th month of planning. He was the same outwardly. He was always the same outwardly. But something had been redirected. She attended a consultation on a Tuesday afternoon without announcing herself. She stood in the doorway for 40 seconds before either of them noticed her. Long enough. She watched Amara explain something about the main salon lighting grid, using her hands in a way that was completely unselfconscious, the specific fluency of someone thinking out loud in a space they understood entirely. And she watched Seo-jun watch Amara with an attention she had not seen him direct at anything in months. She walked in. She smiled at Amara. Warm, flawless. Amara introduced herself. Professional, direct. None of the discomfort most women showed when a partner arrived unexpected. Just herself. Completely. Somehow that was worse than discomfort would have been. Hasten sat through the rest of the meeting. She said nothing. She filed everything. And then she began to move. The first thing was quiet. A brief remark to the venue's general manager during a separate social event. Just a comment about hoping the junior staff understood professional distance. Nothing that could be quoted. Just enough to plant something in the right ear. The second thing was not quiet. She arrived at the venue for a walkthrough she'd scheduled herself with 2 of her friends. Both of them practiced in a very specific kind of cruelty. The kind that leaves no fingerprints. They moved through Amara's meticulously arranged spaces, making small, precise cuts, referring to her twice as the girl, commenting loudly about the help, having such particular opinions about design choices. Amara didn't flinch. She answered every question. She moved the walkthrough forward without a single missed beat. But she heard every word. She always heard every word. She'd been hearing versions of this her whole career, delivered at varying degrees of refinement. She was extraordinarily practiced at not letting it show, but it cost something. It always cost something. That particular tiredness of having to be twice as composed in rooms that asked twice as much from her before they gave anything back. She said nothing. To anyone. She didn't know that Min-jae had been standing at the edge of that walkthrough the entire time. Watching. Saying nothing either. But filing it in a very different kind of way. The rehearsal dinner was a Friday evening. Amara had been on site since 7 in the morning. By 7 that evening, the Grand Terrace had become something that didn't quite belong to the ordinary world. Long slate linen tables running the full length of the room. Hundreds of candles in tall-cut crystal, the flames doubled in the polished stone floor. 68 guests, every one of them significant. The air warm and close with expensive food and older wine. She was everywhere and visible to no one, the way she always worked. Moving between kitchen and terrace and staging area through her earpiece, resolving problems the guests would never know had existed. At 9:30, she needed to confirm a temperature issue in the second-floor east suite before the Lee family elders retired up there after dessert. She took the main staircase. White marble treads, cold iron balusters, broad and curving upward into the upper gallery. She was finishing a call on her earpiece, moving quickly but sure, her heels reading every step. 3 steps from the top, she looked up. Choi Hae-sun was standing at the top of the stairs, alone, in a deep burgundy gown, structured at the shoulders. Her 2 friends were somewhere on the terrace below, and she was looking down at Amara with something on her face that was entirely different from everything before. Not the yeek composed social management of the walkthrough. Something roar. The specific expression of a woman who has been managing something for a very long time and has run in this private corridor at the top of these stairs, completely out of patience for it. "You're always where he is," Hasten said. Low, flat, like a door closing. Amara stopped on the third step, the iron railing cold under her right hand. The party sounds floating faint from below. "Ms. Choi, I need to check the East Suite. If you'll excuse me." "He looks at you," Hasten said. "Every room. He finds you first. Do you think I haven't seen it?" "This isn't a conversation I'm going to have with you," Amara said. Even, controlled. "If you have concerns about the event, speak to the general manager." "You are staff," Hasten said. "You are staff, and you have spent 6 months placing yourself inside something that doesn't belong to you." "Ms. Choi?" One word, a warning. "Move," Amara said. Hasten stepped forward. Not a stumble, not an accident. A step. Both hands, palm flat against Amara's shoulders. Deliberate. Amara went backward. Her right hand caught the iron railing, both hands slamming onto it, which stopped her body but didn't stop the wrist from twisting hard against the cold metal. She hit the mid-stair landing on her left side, ribs first against the stone edge of the step. The impact drove every bit of air out of her chest in 1 second. She lay on the landing. Above her, the staircase was silent. Below her, the party continued. The string quartet. The low hum of important conversation. 68 guests who didn't know anything had happened. At the bottom of the staircase, Amara's junior coordinator, Dae-yoon, was coming up with a facilities key and a tablet. She looked up. She made a sound she wouldn't be able to describe later. She dropped both things and ran. At the top of the stairs, Hyson stood completely still for a moment. Then she turned, walked back into the upper gallery, and pulled the door closed behind her. Min Jae's call came at 11:43. Seo-jun was at the terrace table. Some conversation about port restructuring. A general from his father's generation talking at length. His phone buzzed in his jacket pocket. He looked at the name. Min Jae only called during an event for one kind of reason. He excused himself. He was in the East Wing corridor in under 4 minutes. Amara was sitting on the floor against the wall near the service elevator. Left arm held careful against her side. Right wrist wrapped in a kitchen cloth someone had found. 6 people around her trying to help. She wasn't letting them help. She was sitting at her full height, back straight, and managing the 6 people attempting to manage her with the same precise composure she brought to everything. She looked up when he came around the corner. Something moved across her face. Gone before it fully arrived. But he caught it. Half a second before she composed. It away. Relief. Real. Involuntary. She hadn't expected him to come. He crossed the corridor and crouched directly in front of her. Not beside her. In front. Face level with hers. The stone floor cold beneath them. The service elevator humming softly somewhere above. He looked at her wrist. He looked at her face. "What happened?" he said. It wasn't a question. "I fell on the staircase," she said. Behind him, Min Jae said nothing. He had been at the bottom of those stairs when it happened. Seo-jun looked at her. She looked back at him with the expression of someone who has decided to absorb this alone and has already begun the process of absorbing it. Not because she didn't need help, because she'd spent a long time not expecting to receive it. That was the thing that hit him before anything else. Not the wrist, not the ribs. The fact that her first instinct, her trained, practiced, deeply settled instinct was to say nothing and get on with it. "The hospital," he said. "I'm fine." "Amara." She stopped. He said her name differently from the way anyone else said it. She'd known that for months. She'd filed it in the same place she'd filed everything else she wasn't ready to name. She closed her eyes for one breath. Then, "There are 68 guests. Daeun's handling it," he said. He didn't look away from her. "Already called," Min-jae said quietly. "Cars in the East Bay." She looked at him. "You don't have to do this." "I know," he said. He helped her up carefully. One hand at her elbow, measured exactly what she needed and nothing more. She stood at her full height, shoulders level, head up, the same composure she brought into every room, carrying it even now, even here, on the cold floor of a service corridor at 11:43 at night. Something settled in his chest. Not soft. More like a decision arriving. They walked to the car. No words. The city outside doing what it always did. Lit and indifferent and ongoing. At the hospital, she looked at him across 2 waiting room chairs and said, "You know what happened?" "Min-jae was there," he said. She nodded slowly. A pause. Then quieter. "I wasn't going to say anything." "I know," he said. "That makes me angrier than the act itself." She looked at him. "I've been not saying things like this my whole career. It's not a sacrifice. It's just how you survive certain rooms." "You shouldn't have to survive this room," he said. "No," she said, simply. "I shouldn't." She looked at her wrapped wrist resting on her knee, the yellow waiting room light above them, the low sound of a television somewhere down the hall. When she looked back up, something in her face had shifted. Not harder. More direct. "Seo-jun," she said. "I know," he said. Before she could say anything else, she looked at him. "I know what this is," he said. "What it's been. I should have said something months ago." He paused. "I've been planning to end the engagement, not because of tonight. Because it was never right. I said yes to something that made sense on paper before I understood what enough actually felt like." Another pause. "Then I met you, and I understood the difference." She was quiet for a moment. "You have a wedding tomorrow," she said. "I know." "Then go handle it," she said. "Whatever you decide, decide it clean, not as a reaction to this, for the right reasons." He looked at her for a long moment. Something in his face moved through something and came out the other side settled. "I will," he said. He didn't sleep. He sat in the chair by the east window until 4 a.m, not pacing, not anxious, just thinking with the specific deliberateness he brought to things that actually mattered, moving through it from every angle until there was nothing left to move through. Here's what he was certain of. The engagement was never real. Not in any sense that mattered. It was an arrangement built on logic, the right families, the right connections, the right appearance at the right tables. He'd agreed to it before he understood that sense on paper and truth are not the same thing. Here's what else he was certain of. Hae-sun had stood at the top of a marble staircase and put her hands on a woman who had done nothing except be exceptional at her job and possess the involuntary quality of making every room she walked into more alive than it was before she arrived. Hae-sun had done it in the dark, with the full confidence of someone who believed her position made it permitted. And Amara had been going to say nothing. She'd been going to absorb it, file it, keep working, keep being the most composed person in rooms that cost her more than they ever gave back. She'd been going to do it because that was the system she'd built to survive in, because she'd never once had a reason to expect it to work any other way. That was the thing that wouldn't leave him alone, not the act. The years of practice underneath the act. The years that had made saying nothing feel like the sensible, practical, inevitable response. He wasn't going to let this be the last thing true about this situation. At 4, Min-jae knocked. He was in a dark jacket, no tie. He hadn't slept either. "Hospital confirmed," he said. "Distal radius fracture, 2 cracked ribs. No spinal involvement." Seojin nodded. "They also noted," Min-jae said carefully, "that the injury pattern is inconsistent with a fall from that landing. The angle of the wrist impact indicates she was already in motion toward the railing when she went down, not away from it." The room was very quiet. "Daeun called me at 2, Min-jae said. "She has a written statement. Signed." "Get some rest," Seojin said. "I need you sharp in 8 hours." Min-jae looked at his boss for a long moment. 8 years. He'd seen this man in every kind of room. He'd never seen this particular version of his face. Not cold anger, not calculation, but something underneath both of those. The face of a man who has arrived completely at a decision and has made total peace with what it costs. "I'll be there," Min-jae said. The morning arrived white and cold. He walked through the entrance of Chateau Mirai at 10. 200 guests already inside, the Grand Salon exactly as it had been planned. Every detail, every choice, every specific thing that made the room feel the way it felt. Amara's work, all of it, flawless and alive without her. He walked through the doors and felt the full weight of that for the first time. She had built this. Spent 6 months building it with the same precision she brought to everything. And she wasn't here. She was in a hospital bed 3 miles away because someone had decided her presence was a thing they could simply remove. He stood at the altar. The crystal caught the light. The 30,000 flowers held their breath. Min-jae took his position 3 steps behind. The doors opened. Choi Hae-sun appeared at the far end of the aisle. Perfect. 17 feet of ivory silk trailing behind her. She moved toward him with the quiet certainty of a woman who has eliminated every obstacle between herself and a moment and is now simply collecting what she has earned. 200 people rose. She reached the altar. She looked at him. He looked at her. And into the silence before the officiant could say a single word, he said, "I can't do this." Her composure held for exactly 3 seconds. Then, Seojin. His name. Low, controlled. A warning. "Not here." "I know what happened on Friday night," he said. "I know what you did at the top of that staircase. I know exactly what it was and why you did it." Something shifted in her face. Not guilt. The expression of someone who made a decision that made complete sense to them at the time and is now being asked to defend it before an audience they didn't prepare for. "She's staff," Hae-sun said. Her voice stayed low. The first row heard every word. "Her name is Amara Osei," he said. "She has a fractured wrist and 2 cracked ribs because of what you did." "I was protecting what was mine," she said. "She was never a threat to what was yours," he said. "She was doing her job. You put your hands on her because you believed your position allowed it. Because you were certain nobody would say anything." A pause. "You were certain I wouldn't say anything." The silence that followed was the heaviest thing in the room. Something cracked behind Hae-sun's eyes. Something that had been holding for a very long time. "Is it because of her?" she said. So quiet it was barely sound. "Just tell me the truth." He held her gaze. "It's because of you," he said. "Because of who you showed me you are." He stepped back from the altar. Behind him, Min-jae was already moving. Hyson stood at the altar for one long moment. Then her face reassembled itself. She was, in the final accounting, extraordinary at that. And she turned and walked back down the aisle herself, head up, the composed authority of a woman already deciding what story she was going to tell about this. But her hands, at her sides, where no one could see them, were shaking. He drove to the hospital himself, still in the suit. Room 412. He knocked twice. "Come in," she said. He opened the door. She was sitting on the edge of the bed, fully dressed, coat over her shoulders, the white cast bright on her right wrist. Her left side still held careful. She lowered her phone when she saw him. Something moved across her face that she didn't fully compose away this time. She let it stay. "You're still in your suit," she said. "I came straight here," he said. The morning light came in through the small window behind her. Flat, gray, real. "It's done?" she said. "Yes," he said. He sat down in the chair beside the bed. She looked at him. "Tell me it wasn't because of this," she said. Quiet, steady, her eyes holding his. "Tell me it was because it was never right." 6 weeks ago, he said, I asked Min-jae to schedule a call with my solicitor to begin the process. He paused. "I was going to come to you when it was final. Come to you with something clean to offer instead of the full weight of something I hadn't said out loud yet." He looked at his hands for a moment. "I waited too long. That was my mistake." "Why did you wait?" she said. He looked at her. "Because you're the most self-contained person I've ever been in a room with," he said. "I couldn't tell whether what I felt was something you felt back or something I was reading because I'd been honest with you in a way I hadn't been honest with anyone in a long time." A pause. "I was afraid of being wrong." She was quiet. The hospital room quiet around them. The city outside doing what cities do. "You weren't wrong," she said. Simple. No decoration. He looked at her. "But I need you to understand something," she said. "I don't want to be where someone lands after the intended destination didn't work out. I want to be chosen. Specifically, deliberately, as the point. Not as what comes after." "You're the point," he said. "You've been the point for a long time. I just didn't say it fast enough." She held his gaze for a long moment, something warm and certain moving through her face. The gate she kept, carefully, as a matter of long habit, opening a degree wider. "Then we start over," she said, clean, as two people with nothing in the way. "All right," he said. "Ask me properly," she said. "When you're ready." The corner of his mouth moved. Not quite a smile. The thing that happened in his face just before the decision to smile caught up with the rest of him. "I'm asking now," he said. "You're in a hospital room," she said. "Yes," he said, "and I'm in a cast." "You are," he said. "Ask me when I'm not in a hospital," she said. But something had shifted in her face. The gate fully open now. Something warm and done waiting visible on the other side of it. "When do they discharge you?" he said. "Tomorrow morning," she said. "Then I'll be here at 8, he said. She looked at him. "You're going to come back tomorrow morning." 8 o'clock, he said. Nothing uncertain in it. A pause. "I'm on the 4th floor, she said. "I know which floor you're on," he said, and she laughed. The real kind, The full, unguarded kind, from somewhere beneath the composure, beneath the years of being the most controlled person in every room from the specific absurdity of this exact moment. Him in his wedding suit in a hospital chair, her in a cast. The two of them having arrived at this by the most unnecessarily complicated route imaginable. He went completely still. The way he always went still when she did that. Like the sound was something he intended to stay close to for a long time. "What?" she said. "Nothing," he said. "You always say nothing." "It's always something," he said. "I'm just deciding whether to say it." "Say it," she said. He looked at her. "I've been in a lot of rooms with you over 6 months," he said. "Watched you build something extraordinary out of precision and the complete refusal to be anything other than exactly yourself. I sat in every one of those rooms thinking about different rooms. Ones that had nothing to do with events or floor plans or anything that was scheduled." He paused. "I should have said it long before now." She looked at him for a long time, something settling in her face. Not new. It had been there for months. It was just finally allowed. "Go home," she said. "Change your clothes. Come back at 8. "You're sending me away," he said. "You smell like someone else's flowers," she said. He almost laughed. She watched it happen. The decision arriving, the expression changing, the laugh starting and being held with the specific deliberateness of a man who was taking his time. "Go," she said. She was almost smiling. He could see it in the corner of her mouth. He stood. He looked at her one more time with the full directness of it. Nothing composed away. Just the thing itself. 8 o'clock, he said. "I'll be here," she said. He left. He was there at 7:58. He knocked twice on the door of room 412. 2 cups in his hands, terrible hospital cafeteria coffee, the machine on the ground floor offering exactly one option in a paper cup with a lid that didn't quite close. "Come in," she said. He opened the door. She was sitting on the edge of the bed, fully dressed, coat over her shoulders, already waiting. The cast clean white on her right wrist. The morning light coming in through the small window, pale and flat and real. She looked at him, then at the 2 cups. "You got coffee?" she said. "The machine downstairs only had one option," he said. "Is it bad?" "Terrible," he said. She held out her good hand. He crossed the room and gave her a cup. He sat, down in the chair. She wrapped both hands around it, cast on her right, her left hand warm against the cardboard, and looked at him over the rim. "Ask me," she said. He looked at her. In a hospital room on the 4th floor on a Saturday morning, the city outside going on without them. The light coming in pale through the window, catching the white of her cast, the steam rising from both cups. "Amara," he said, "will you have dinner with me tonight?" Just that. She looked at him for one long moment. "Yes," she said. He was quiet. Something moved through his face that he let stay there. Something complete. She held the terrible coffee in both hands. He held his. The city outside moved on and went forward, and didn't notice that anything had shifted. The light came in through the small window, the way light comes in through hospital windows. Flat and undramatic, and entirely real. She took a sip. He took a sip. "It really is terrible," she said. "Told you," he said. She almost smiled. He almost smiled. 2 people, 2 cups of bad coffee, a hospital room at 8 in the morning, beginning something with nothing in the way. That's how it started. Not with 30,000 flowers, not with 200 guests in their finest, not with a staircase and a push and a wedding that fell apart in front of everyone. With bad coffee. A question finally asked. And a woman who had spent her whole career being the most capable person in rooms that refused to see her, finally, for the first time, completely seen. Comment below. Did she deserve that ending? Was he too slow or right on time? Like this video and subscribe for more stories like this one. We'll see you next time.